Hi everyone, this is Aki, and this is a second video in this series of how you want to file your taxes. And this is option 2. Basically, if you do want to file it yourself, but you want to use brand software. And the pros and cons of that are the pros, you gain personal insight into your financials. So you kind of learn about your tax situation and you see where everything goes and how everything works and flows and so on. So you can maybe make better decision in the future. You may qualify for free version. A lot of the brand big companies do have free version, but you do want to double check that your forms that you're filing are included, and many times you think it might qualify, but then you end up paying for an upgraded version. Now, for extra fees, sometimes you can also do it yourself and have someone check your tax return. So that's another great option here. It does have checks for errors, so it won't let you file if you're missing something or there are typos and so on, like if you type in Social Security in two different places incorrectly. So it will warn you that, although it won't warn you about everything. It does also have the walkthrough interview process. So this is an option where basically you don't have to know where everything goes on a form, but you have to answer questions, and based on that information will flow through you to the tax forms. Now, what are the cons? The cons are that some of the free versions, as I mentioned, are really for very simple situations. So these brand software free versions are not the same as the free version through the IRS free file program. So you have to be aware, if you want the IRS version, which are more generous usually, you have to go to the IRS website. The free versions on the big company websites, many times they include very basic situations like W-2 and maybe a couple of other things, but it might trigger an upgrade if you have such a thing as student loan or an education credit or something like that. So you do want to double check. Now, you do want to know that there's a lot of upselling, and many times you might be sold different kind of products like, upgrade, or you might have, they want to sell you some kind of tax identity protection, or may want to have tax refund transfer, basically paying your paying your tax preparation fee out of your refund, and some other things, or identity protection or audit protection and so on. So you have to be aware what you're buying, whether or not, how long it will be covering, and whether or not it will cover only the tax payer or also the second person on the tax return and so on. Now, there are also, like I mentioned, convenience fees could be charged as well. The state could be extra as well. It does take time and skill still to feel familiar with the process and answering some of these questions. And if you have any questions, you have to Google and maybe use the tax software help section and so on to figure it out. If you do want to call someone, you might be charged for the help, and it can be overwhelming, especially if your situation is more complex. But sometimes it just takes a couple of years and you will feel familiar, and from year to year it might be easier and easier. So it's definitely a good option for some taxpayers who feel comfortable using technology and so on. And the tip that I can offer is basically to check to make sure all the forms are covered, because if you download or buy a software for a certain type of return and you end up actually, let's say you had a gig or something, or you driving an Uber or something, and then you actually have to file Schedule C as a self-employed and might not be covered by your brand software, then you will have to actually go up to another version, and you might have to call in to get a refund, and it can be very very difficult to do that. So hopefully that helped you figure it out if this is a good option for you to file your taxes.